All right, we're back with TEW Impact. Post emergence. If you were here last episode, thanks. Uh, I said I was gonna take a break. I think I did. I guess. It's mostly just to uh have a plan going forward. Made sure I have a plan going forward for the next couple shows for Victory Road and for Bound for Glory. I'm not 100% there, but I think we're close. I say maybe the final outline for both shows, I'd say maybe like 75-80% complete. How to get there. Some programs are more fleshed out than others, but I figure if we get the ball rolling, now the emergencies in the books, some things have happened. Uh, Hopefully we start, like I said, start the ball rolling to the next couple shows. I think we're in August week 3 right now. So let's get into it. We're at the news, the numbers, whatever, what have you. Some of this is gonna be repeat information. Since we did like a post uh show rundown that we normally don't do. I normally leave them after till the next episode. So, 'cause I didn't know how soon I would be back. But we'll just go through them again. Not a whole lot. Emergence numbers. Our PPBI rate was 0.58, down from 0.59 for against all odds. The previous month show overall rating was a 43, down from a 45, and then attendance was 1,393, down from 1,420. So down overall, but not huge drops. Like 0.01 drop for buy rate, 2 point drop for rating, and then like what, if I do my math, like 30, a drop of 30 maybe ish for attendance. So I say we're doing all right. Impact news, not a whole lot. The only news that we had was that Sam Beal requested a pay raise from $20 to $90 per show. Kind of shameful how, well, I say kind of shameful how little some of these people are set to be paid, but I, of course, I could pay them more, but I don't. Well, in this case, I will. Since, Beal is being booked on at least pay-per-views now, and being a more regular member or appearing on the shows at least. So, figured that granted that, no problem. Get the guy some money. There's 1 month remaining on Carl Anderson's contract. I've not been using the Good Brothers, but I think when Doc Gallows' contract was up, I renewed it, so I probably will do the same for Carl. It's just that it happened like before the pay-per-view, so I didn't really do anything yet, but I probably will renew the contract and find something to do for them to do in the future. WWE news. There was quite a bit that happened. Um, I think the same this weekend was, if I remember right, maybe a big new. Well, not a huge show week. I want to say like the previous week was maybe a huge show week, but WWE news. The New Day of Kofi and Xavier defeated the Usos on SmackDown to win the tag team titles. The game has it as their second reign. I think the particular combination of Kofi and Xavier, but to me that still doesn't sound right. It feels like they've had the titles more than that, but I did not care enough to look, so I didn't. Samoa, wow, my typos are crazy. Samoa Joe won the North American title at Takeover 44. I think this is, yeah, we did mention this last week, last show. Yeah, because after the pay-per-view, it was like Takeover and a bunch of other indie shows happened. So yeah, again, repeat information. Samoa Joe won by defeating Braun Breaker and Dexter Lumis in the main event of Takeover. So we have not completely jinxed Samoa Joe. He has lost the NXT title and the 24/7 title. but now he's North American champion. So uh, Samoa Joe, good for him. Gigi Dolan and JC Jane defeated Zoe Stark, Valentina Ferros, and Kaden Carter, Casey Canzaro at Takeover to win the women's tag team titles, their second reign. Like I said, technically they're not considered Toxic Attraction because Toxic Attraction broke up, but they're still together. And I think Mandy Rose might be on SmackDown or somewhere. And then on the Raw after the pay per view, Kevin Owens won the United States title on Raw by defeating Damian Priest, Happy Corbin, and Cesaro in a four-way, his fourth reign with the United States title. And then Braun Breaker and Timothy Thatcher extended their written deals with NXT. And then referee Chris Roberts was released by NXT UK. American news. AEW, big news. Well, big news considering Christian Cage has left. His contract has run out and was not renewed. Needless to say, um, we knew it was announced that he had planned, or at least AEW had not planned on renewing his contract. And when his contract has run out, I think it goes without saying that or at least I, uh, definitely made him an offer. It's not been accepted yet because I think the deal just ran out like after the pay per view, so or a couple days after. So he has not accepted yet, but we will see. Hopefully, we can get him on board. It would be a huge get for us to get Christian back on the Impact roster. And then PWG, again, repeat information. Cody Rhodes defeated Bandito in the main event of their Speed and Sound event to win the PWG title. His first reign with that. And Cody Rhodes is also NWA World Champion. Defy has hired Sheamus, Jesus Rodriguez, Sammy Callahan, Sammy Guevara, and Jungle Boy to handshake deals. Shimmer, Allison Kay defeated Zoe Sky at Volume 128 to win the Shimmer Championship, her first reign with that title. AIW, Sheamus suffered a dislocated knee at the Absolution 15. In the main event, teaming with PB Smooth to defeat Matt Cardona and Leo Rush, he'll be out for a few weeks. And then Jay Raves defeated Allison Kay at a Go for Broke taping to win the women's title. So her first reign. So Allison Kay winning a title and losing a title in the matter of days. And then for NWA, Matt Taven extended his handshake deal. I don't know if anyone's actually been wondering or asking, but I don't have plans to bring in Matt Taven. We have Maria and Michael Bennett. So anyone out there who may be wanting a Kingdom reunion will not get it here. Japan news for New Japan. Tomoaki Hanma suffered a broken rib, out for a month. Togi Makabe extended his written deal with New Japan. Noah has hired Shigehiro Ire, Fuda Nakamura, and Umanosuke Ueda to handshake deals, so they're bumping up their roster. 0-1. Hartley Jackson won the Fire Festival tournament at the Summerfest show, defeating Tomohiko Hashimoto in the finals. And then Tokyo Joshi Pro has hired Akira Maeda as a handshake deal as a road agent. So maybe Tokyo Joshi Pro, maybe heading for a shoot style. I don't know. I just thought that was kind of funny. Retirements and miscellaneous. The retirements announced were Alex Wright, Grant Akuma, Rory Fox, Roadkill, and Tony Chimmel. Retirements going into effect. Some big names in here. Doug Williams, Jorge Rivera, Hiro Saito, Christopher Daniels, Christopher Daniels still employed at AEW as staff, likely road agent. Bill Dundee, Tommy Dreamer, Kevin Sullivan, Super Delphin, Gran Hamada, Glenn Ruth, Ricky Fuji, Soraya Knight. So the AEW Soraya's mom, Paige's mom, not Paige. Lita, Negro Casas, Funaki, Joe Hennig, Glenn Gilberti, Cahegas, Samula Anoa'i, Brad Rheingans, Minoru Suzuki, Kane, Aja Kong, Booker T, Dos Caras, Koji Kanemoto, Charlie Haas, Danny Doring, Headhunter A, Brian Knobs, and Rebel. And miscellaneous, Mary Dobson, formerly known as Sarah Logan from WWE, has announced her return to the wrestling business. Apparently, she was on hiatus, likely from her, uh, I don't know if it was counted as maternity leave, but I guess she is good to go. So maybe she will, pop up somewhere. Uh, we don't have plans on bringing her in. And I think that, yep, that's it. So not a ton of news, but let's just go into before the impact. We get an angle to start the show where Joe Hendry is walking into the arena. He's approached by Nick Stapp. Um, Stapp wants to just thank Joe for at least sticking up for him and attempting to get his job back with Impact. At Emergence, or at least in the pre-show, Hendry lost to Brian Myers. So the stipulation being that if Hendry won, they would at least attempt to get Stapp his job back in Impact. That did not happen because he lost. But nevertheless, Stapp wants to thank Hendry for his help and reveals that Brian Myers reached out to him and gave him a job at the Create a Pro at his gym, at his training uh, school, as wrestling school, as a hand, likely as a some sort of janitor, maybe. But nevertheless, Stapp tells Hendry not to worry about him, so he's covered. But that doesn't really seem to fly for Hendry, and Hendry says he will have a talk with Myers later on tonight. Killer Kelly defeating Masha Slamovich. Both of these women coming up short in the pre-show of Emergence of becoming either one becoming the digital media champion. Neither one were able to dethrone Jazia. This was the result. Killer Kelly beats Masha Slamovich, likely due to some botched interference by Diener. But after the match, or Diener seems to get in Slamovich's face, starts yelling at her. Slamovich lays out Diener and is eventually joined in by Kelly. So Kelly, Jesus, Killer Kelly. So Killer Kelly and Masha Slamovich beating down Diener, leaving him broken or beaten down and broken, and walking off together. So we possibly have a new alliance between Kelly and Masha. We get an angle at Swingers Palace, where after a week of searching, um, Zicky Dice returns to Johnny Swinger and says that he has done it. He has found the next member of Swingers Palace, and Swingers like, okay, well, where is he? And Zicky's like, well, I can't just bring him in right now, but I will guarantee we'll bring him here next week. You can take a look at him, see what you think, and we can go from there. So the newest member of Swingers Palace set to debut next week, and then in the main event, Falaba defeating Willie Mack. Previously, Willie Mack had defeated Raj Singh, but in the end, this week was unable to defeat Falaba. Likely some help with Raj and Shera at ringside, able to make that happen. I think that would have gotten if I recall correctly, that would have gotten a higher rating if we did not have Eric Stevens uh, agenting it. I think I might have had Madison Rain agenting Kelly versus Masha, so that's why that got a higher rating. So an overall rating of 29, kind of I guess an average before the impact. So With that out of the way, let's just go to Impact. All right, so we start off Impact with a tag match. Dalton Castle's boys versus the muscle of Maria Canellis, if you will, Black Taurus and Matthew Raywalt. This time, Black Taurus getting the win by pinning one of the boys with an interference from Steve Macklin. Macklin having defeated Dalton Castle under nefarious means last week. Um, the trend continues. The B team, if you will, of Maria Canellis getting one over on Dalton and the boys. Segment rating of 39. Surprisingly, the boys doing better already over Matthew Raywalt and Black Taurus. Though, to be fair, it's not like I've really booked them regularly in any sort of dominant capacity. So, probably my fault, but, you know, I don't know. I guess I have them. I have their places in uh the crew set. Their Black Truce is definitely the muscle of the crew. If you disqualify W Morrissey, he's more of the he's definitely the muscle, but I guess he's the one of the main focuses. We'll get to that issue later. Matthew Waywell, kind of the handler of Black Truce, if you will. Steve Macklin, kind of the technical guy, and then we have the others, which we will get into because after the match, Dalton getting some measure of revenge for his boys by attacking Steve Macklin, but that does not last too long as Matt Striker and Robert Evans come in, not with a ton of offense. Macklin's able to at least dispose, well, not dispose, but at least keep Dalton at bay while Stryker and Evans get some cheap shots in. But that leads to the return of D'Lo Brown. D'Lo Brown on Impact for the first time in a few weeks after being betrayed by Matt Stryker and laid out by members of Maria Canal D'Lo Brown making his return, chasing off Stryker and Evans, and eventually Macklin, and helping Dalton Castle back up to his feet. So at least we get a uh, some sort of comeuppance, at least for the time being. But the return of D'Lo Brown, um, D'Lo having uh, given away his announcing spot, his color commentator spot. So where does D'Lo Brown fit into all of this? Maybe we will find out in a future episode. Segment rating of 28 for that. And then we go backstage where follow up from before the impact where Hendry approaches Brian Myers and he's like, I just want to, talk to you about everything about, the whole Nick Stapp situation, trying to get his job back. You won, you know, I couldn't get the job done. I couldn't beat you. So, following the rules, I'll drop trying to get Nick Stapp his job back. But, he approached me before the show and said that you were able to line him up with a job at the Create a Pro school, and Brian Myers is basically patting himself on the back. Is like, yes, he's as a former student, I've felt compelled to want to take care of him in his time of need, and gave him a spot at the school. As low paying and unglamorous as it might be, I just want him to get him back on his feet, and so they kind of settle it as that. And Hendry puts out his hand. And they kind of shake on it, and Myers is gloating at his act of generosity, if you will. But then, after Myers walks away for a bit, Hendry looks at the cameraman The segment ends kind of funnily where Hendry looks at the cameraman and kind of looks like he's taking the camera from him. And the segment just kind of ends abruptly. Um, in a weird segment. Segment rating of 32 for that. We get Willow Nightingale versus Mercedes Martinez. Willow, I believe her first actual match on Impact. She debuted on Before the Impact and making a debut against the legendary, if you will, Mercedes Martinez. Not able to get the job done. Mercedes taps out Willow in 10 minutes, but also it did not help that Tasha was able to sneak in a few shots here and there, weakening Willow and leaving her open for the submission segment rating of 38 for that. But then after the match, we get basically Tasha um kind of getting a few digs in, which brings out Quinn McKay, who attacks Tasha, which brings out Savannah and Janai to overwhelm Quinn, which ends up bringing out Rachel Ellering and Roxy. So that results in a huge brawl between everyone. Um, and Willow, in an effort to save Willow. So, um, yeah, sorry. we get So we get a big brawl between the two girl gangs, if you will. The storyline is losing heat. Rachel Ellering has a gimmick that is getting stale, so that is something we will have to look at. Segment rating of 22. And then we go backstage to we see the BFFs, Deonna Purrazzo and Chelsea Green with their newly won Knockouts Tag Team titles after finally dethroning the Inspiration as champions. They are so proud of themselves. They're congratulating themselves and each other when eventually Tennille walks up to them, kind of breaks up the party, and surprisingly, Deonna and Chelsea are very thankful for Tennille's help, and they say they want to prove to her that they are better friends to Tennille than the Inspiration ever would be. So what they did is they got Tennille in a match next week to determine the number one contender for the Knockouts title. They don't know who else is going to be in the match, but the fact that they got her a possible title shot, if you will, is definitely what Tennille has been wanting. Tennille has been on a quest to become Knockouts champion. So she has the possible chance next week if she can win the match, whoever that might be against. She will get the title shot at Victory Road. So segment rating of 38 for that, and it looks like Tennille's work, backing up the BFFs and helping them win the titles is actually paying off for her. We get a hype video for the Wolves. The Wolves, we didn't have them on the show, on this show, but basically a recap of them retaining the tag titles against Rep 419 at Emergence and their dominance, if you will, on their their dominance since becoming tag team champions. So we mostly just put this on to pad out the show and give the Wolves some representation since I don't have them appearing. But a segment rating of 39. And then we get a match of Brody King and PCO defeating Rep 419. Rep 419 somewhat exhausted or at least tired after failing to become tag team champions at the pay per view. Brody King and PCO having returned as a team and laying out uh, the Wolves after their tag team title defense. This was kind of an attempt for Rep 419 to kind of stick up for the Wolves, but it did not work. PCO pinning Sam Beal with a package pile driver. So we are having this new form of the gospel of violence, if you will. Father Bateman at ringside and controlling, or at least praising and urging Brody King and PCO to be as violent as they can possibly be. Um, basically an extended squash over Rep 419. Segment rating of 34. After the match, uh, the Gospel of Violence continue their uh, violence. They continue laying out Rep 419 when the Motor City Machine Guns run out. Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin, they run out. They run down to the ring, or down the ramp, down to the ring. But once they get to the ring and see what uh base or rather who they would be facing in the form of Brody King and PCO, they just kind of stop and eventually just start walking to the back. So they don't want a part of Brody or PCO. They are fully willing to let Rep 419 continue getting beaten down. Um, I am kind like I do kind of they like I have them in my the head canon, I guess if you want to say, have had the guns leaning towards heel lately, but they're not full blown heels. They're just kind of cocky. So this is kind of a continuation of that where, they want to uh they obviously want to become tag team champions again. But they're basically picking their spots and not choosing to die on every hill, if you will. If it means um if not running in to save a team like Rep 419 and risk getting beaten down by the gospel of violence is better in their favor, they will opt out. So segment rank of 37. The tag team title storyline losing heat, but the storyline with the gospel of violence gaining heat. And then we get an interview. Gia Miller is interviewing Chris Bay, but also standing by Chris Bay is the newest member of the Impact roster, Will Hobbs. Will Hobbs having made his debut at Emergence, laying out Swerve Strickland after the X Division title match. Gia wonders about it looks like these two have formed a relationship, and Gia wonders that if, this was a planned relationship, why didn't Hobbs interfere during the match and possibly uh have Chris Bay win the X Division title? And Bay's like, well, that wasn't in the plans. I wanted to beat Swerve one on one. I did not know anything about Will Hobbs until he hopped the rail and beat down Swerve. But, after the match, when I found myself, lost the match, I kind of realized, hey, I lost twice now, two separate title defenses against Swerve. It's probably going to be a long time until I get another chance at the title. So what I did was I flagged down Hobbs before he left, and I decided I'm backing my horse on him. Like, he's my horse. I'm backing him all the way, and I'm gonna make sure Hobbs dethrones Swerve and becomes new X Division champion with all my, I'm gonna help him out. We're a unit, we're a team. You can call us power and finesse if you want to. But yeah, that sets up the new relationship between Chris Bay and Will Hobbs in a not great segment rating of 25. And that also sets up the next match where Bay and Hobbs defeat Mance Warner and Danhausen. Will Hobbs pinning Danhausen, an actual good match or decent match. Uh, Everyone has having solid-ish performances, but yeah, Hobbs basically tossing, especially Danhausen, around the ring like nothing. Uh, Likely having his way with Mance Warner as well, but the team of Chris Bay and Will Hobbs getting a proper start, if you will. Segment rating of 40. After dispatching of Danhausen, after the match, Hobbs and Chris Bay intend to do the same to Mance Warner when eventually Swerve Strickland comes out. He runs out with the X Division title. He chases Hobbs and Bay off. Bay, the two, having done enough damage for one night, they beg off and make their way to the back. Swerve standing tall as the X Division champion, but the intent is there. It looks like Will Hobbs, having targeted Swerve at Emergence, kind of staked his claim as next in line to um, become, well, not possibly become the X Division champion, and Bay having full, or Hobbs having Bay's full support, if you will. I can't remember the phrasing of backing his horse into things. I don't know. I don't remember what that phrase is, but segment rating of 35 for that. And then we get a promo from Colby Carino. Colby Carino having uh wearing a neck brace after the match, if you will, that he had with Homicide at Emergence. Homicide basically having gone off the deep end, attacking Colby with a chair, and having to be pulled off by his tag team partner, Hernandez. Colby Carino wearing a neck brace, but still claiming victory over Homicide, saying that Homicide went too far. And he did exactly what he thought Homicide would do, what Homicide has done all of his career, and what Homicide did to his father years ago, where he went too far and crossed the line, and he does not, that's the kind of attitude that he wants to eliminate from Impact Wrestling and from wrestling altogether. Um, just the attitude of disregard and disrespect for your opponent, and a fairly whiny promo, if you will. You get the sense that the neck brace is for show more than uh, for an actual injury. Um, the segment losing gimmick, but or losing heat, but Colby Carino's getting better as gimmick. Segment area 23, so not a great promo. But that continues the issue. Colby Carino not wanting Homicide, as long as not wanting Homicide in wrestling, as long as he's also in wrestling. So Colby's crusade, if you will, soldiers on. And then we go elsewhere backstage where basically Gresham approaches Rich Swann, about having interfered in the match with his wife. Does not appreciate um, Swann having interfered at Emergence, costing Jordan Grace the match against Su Young. Rich, ever so cocky, does not really care. Eventually, this just devolves into a pull apart brawl. Segment rating of 27 for that. That leads into a match between Viper and Jordan Grace, um, which actually goes to a double DQ draw and actually does fairly well. Segment rating of 42. Viper actually doing a better in-ring performance than Jordan Grace. But yeah, basically we wanted two of the most powerful women, two of the most powerful on the Knockouts roster going toe to toe, and it went to a stalemate. I think I had Su Young actually interfering, causing, maybe not. No, just the double DQ. So basically, Uh, the match just kind of devolves and cannot be put together, so ref throws it out in a double DQ, segment rating of 42. And after the match, Su Young comes out and attempts to get the better of Jordan Grace like she did at Emergence, but that ends up bringing out the Knockouts champion Rosemary to chase off Su Young, eventually chase off Viper, and Rosemary and Jordan Grace are standing in the ring, um, having basically fended off um, Viper and Su Young. So, have new alliances been formed somehow? Rosemary, kind of having been taking offense to Su Young, they definitely have had a past. Um, but Rosemary actually coming out to the aid of Jordan Grace is somewhat of a shock, and um, Grace is actually just as shocked as everyone else. Rosemary does not really have a stake in this right now, but yeah, maybe we have an alliance formed somewhat. Segment rating of 36. We get a segment backstage where we are back in Maria Canal LC's locker room. Basically, um, it's kind of a chaotic scene where we have like Macklin and Stryker and Robert Evans are just like throwing stuff around because Dalton Castle got the better of them and D'Lo Brown is back and all that stuff, but Maria's telling everyone to shut up because she wants to uh, make a speech, and she basically pulls a Dixie Carter pre-show meeting, uh, talking about how everyone needs to fall in line, but her speech is definitely focused towards W. Morrissey, who she reminds that she basically owns the contract of W. Morrissey. Morrissey unable to defeat Michael Bennett at Emergence, unable to get his contract null and voided. So Maria is basically telling Morrissey that he is basically at her beck and call and is doing and basically has to do what she says. And the first order of business is to take care of this Dalton Castle situation. So she books a match, Morrissey versus Dalton Castle, next week on Impact, segment rating of 30. We are teasing a face turn for Morrissey, so basically Morrissey having to go through the ringer of Maria Kanellis and her crew if he has any chance of getting free from her contract. And then we go backstage somewhere where Gil Kim is talking. She says she has an announcement to make, but before she can make that announcement, she is interrupted by Lance Archer. Lance Archer talking about how he called out Joe Doring for weeks, got Joe to come back to Japan, and he beat Joe 1, 2, 3 clean in the middle of the ring. He's proving himself to be the biggest, baddest man in Impact, if you will, and thus he says that basically should give him a straight shot to the world title. He demands a world title match, and Gail basically says that, that is a good idea, but I'm not going to give you a title shot right off the bat. We are still trying to determine who Josh Alexander's next contender is going to be. So, Lance, next week, they're like, you won your match at Emergence, but you weren't the only one to have a great showing. You weren't the only one to win your match at the pay per view and basically improve your ranking towards the world title. So what I'm gonna do is next week crowning a new number one contender for Josh's world title shot at Victory Road. Lance versus Jake something. Jake also winning his match at Emergence. If Lance can beat Jake something, he can have that title shot. But you know, Jake has an equal chance too. So Lance versus Jake next week on Emergent or on Impact. Winner getting the title shot at Victory Road. Segment rating of 44 for that. And then we go to our main event, which is actually uh, the losers of those two matches facing off, and also somewhat former rivals from a few months ago. Joe Doring having lost to Lance Archer, Damian O'Connor having lost to Jake Something. Uh, but this time, it's Damian O'Connor getting the win over Joe Doring. I don't remember him winning by submission, but I definitely have him. Should have had him. Yeah, Eric Young interfering on behalf of Damian O'Connor, costing Joe Doring the match in a wild brawl. Uh, so Damian O'Connor, Eric Young getting somewhat of a measure of revenge over Joe Doring for having defeated him a few months back. And kind of getting the win. And unfortunately for Joe Doring, it seems like he's starting, I guess, a downward spiral, if you will. He lost to Lance Archer at Emergence. Now he lost to Damian O'Connor. So that can't be good for him and his standing in Impact and his ranking, what have you. So segment rating of 46 for that. And then to end the show, we get a retirement speech from Jeff Jarrett. Jeff Jarrett comes out on his own. Um, he wants to thank the fans one more time before leaving. He talks about founding Impact, about founding TNA years and years ago. Selling his house, or putting a mortgage on his house, or whatever the story is. Um, just to get it up and running and putting everything into Impact. And he knows, like, it's been a wild history. He's gone, he's left, he's come back. He wanted to come back one more time because he felt that his career was winding down. But when Josh Alexander challenged him to that match at Emergence, he had to take it. He had to see if he could hang one more time, just to make sure, if he could hang with the current crop of great talent. And in the end, he just couldn't do it. Um, the business has passed him by. Don't feel bad for him. He's doing fine. He's got a great family. He's got the podcast, and he just wanted to come back one last time, one last run, and just say goodbye to the fans. And eventually, Josh Alexander comes out, the Impact World Champion, and he basically wants to apologize for his behavior recently. Um, he was wrong. He felt Jeff Jarrett was coming in to steal the spotlight of the world champion, as Jarrett has tended to do in the past. But also hinted at a bit of, admitted to a bit of paranoia. But he knows that Jeff knows that feeling better than anyone, being a former world champion, the paranoia that comes with it, the target being on your back. And that's why he put the title on the line, or extended the challenge and put the title on the line in Emergence. But even though Jeff didn't win, he wanted to know that yes, he could still hang. And when Josh became world champion of Impact, he made a vow to basically carry Impact on his back and carry the banner of Impact. But he admits that, Jeff is the one who built this place, and he is going to make sure um, that Impact is standing strong for another 20 years and everything and everything. And eventually they bury the hatchet. Josh Alexander and Jeff Jarrett shake hands and eventually hug. That brings out Ace Austin and Madman Fulton, who attack the pair of them. Austin attacking both men with his briefcase, attempting a possible cash in on Alexander, but that is interrupted by Speedball Mike Bailey. Bailey comes out, attacks Austin, attacks Fulton, allowing Josh Alexander to join back into the fight and allowing Jarrett to eventually lay out uh, at least Madman Fulton with a guitar. So sending the fans home happy. Segment ring of 36, which I wish this would have done better, especially since it's technically Jarrett's send off, I believe, after tonight, either the day after or a day or two after this show, he is technically retired. So we shall see. He's at least retired from in ring competition. We shall see if he's still available in some shape or form. Overall rating of 44. I was actually kind of worried that we wouldn't get that high. Um, because the segments weren't doing all that great. We were leveling out in the 30s until uh, the Hobbs and Bay match. The Viper and Jordan Grace match did decent, and then Damien O'Connor and Doring did pretty good. Best match of the show, actually. Best segment. But yeah, I was getting worried that we were kind of gonna level off at like a 30, a mid 30 for our overall rating, but then these other segments helped us out. So yeah, kind of a, I guess, a mid show, if you will, from coming off of Emergence, but we are starting to get things rolling towards Victory Road. We have number one contender title matches set up. Archer versus something next week. Tennille in a knockouts title number one contenders match. We don't know who she's going to face, but she's in the match. We got Morrissey forced to do Maria Kanellis' bidding. He's going to face Dalton Castle next week. We got the tag team division going off. We got tag teams with the knockouts going off. We have Joe Hendry and Brian Myers. We have Will Hobbs and we have Carino taunting him. So we got a lot of stuff going off. So I do have a plan going towards Victory Road and Bound for Glory. Like I said, not a complete plan yet. A lot of it hinges on new signees. So yeah, I at least want to get that far into this game. So if you want to keep watching, I will be here till at least Bound for Glory, which is a couple months. So next week we got August week 4 and another week towards Victory Road. So we're starting off the road to Bound for Glory, if you will. Thanks for watching.